Welcome to the Publish Creator Podcast, the show where books become brands and creators become CEOs. I'm your host, Rodney Washington, a book coach, brand strategist, and founder of the Published and Thriving movement. If you're an author, coach, or content creator with a book, or even just an idea, this podcast will show you how to turn it into a thriving offer, a loyal community, and a lasting legacy. Each week, I'll share real-world strategies, inspiring success stories, and behind-the-scenes coaching to help you build momentum, whether you're just publishing your first book or ready to expand into courses, memberships, and more. Because publishing isn't the end of the journey, it's the launch pad. Let's build your brand, multiply your impact, and create the freedom you deserve. Enjoy today's episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the new Publish Creator Podcast. As you know from my last episode, if you listened, that I just rebranded the podcast to the new name. And this is one of the first interviews that I'm doing on that rebrand of the podcast. Now, before we get started today, I want to ask you a question as an author creator. Have you ever thought about or considered, or do you know of anyone who has considered doing a Kickstarter campaign as a way to raise funds to create your project? I've considered it and just wondering, is this something that we should consider? Because there's so many options and so many different ways that we can get our books out there. And I've always wondered if that was a possibility, but not something that I was actively seeking until recently. So for many of you listening to the show, you may or may not know that I have relocated to Las Vegas, and I was attending a networking meeting that I decided to go to really impromptu. And because I'm not an early morning person, but I decided today, go ahead and go, take a chance, it'll be okay. And upon arriving at the meeting, I met my guest today, Josh Jenne, and he is an author who actually has published several books, beautifully illustrated books, mind you. He also uses one of my favorite cohorts for print-on-demand printing, which is lulu.com, which, spoiler alert, I'm interviewing someone from Lulu next week for the podcast, so it'll be interesting to see how that comes together. What he shared with me was that he used Kickstarter to be able to get the book out there, to be able to validate the project and finance the project. To the tune of you listening right now, $202,000. He's over $202,000 he's raised to publish that book. Now, many of you listening to this may think, wow, that is a lot of money. Can I even come close to that? You might be able to. That's one reason why I wanted to have Josh on the call today, because he is going to tell you what goes into creating a $202,000 launch of a book on using the platform of Kickstarter. So take some notes. This is not going to be how to set up a Kickstarter campaign. This is going to be an opportunity to have a conversation to even see or explore the idea if a Kickstarter campaign is going to be right for you and your project. So with that said, Josh, thanks for being with me today on the show, and welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me on. And I'm glad that you did show up to the networking meeting, because especially on a whim, I realized later that maybe 8:30 a.m. was too early. I'd been going to the early ones, so I thought that was how folks normally did it. But we'll definitely do it at lunch next time.
Yeah. No, it was fine. And if some of you who are listening to this or watching this, you may or may not know that I have a new Skool community called the Publish Creator. And if you aren't, I'll have the link in the show notes about how to join that. It's a free community that you can join. But if you are a part of that community, then you know that I recently did a post in the group about getting basically out of the house and getting face-to-face with people. If you can, like I do everything online, as many of us started doing after COVID. For now, things are open and we can still go out and do things. And so when you get the opportunity to actually meet people, nothing beats meeting people if you can face to face. And so again, while I'm not a morning person, I was really glad I got up that morning and decided to go to that meeting. Yeah. So if you do it again in the morning, I'll be there. If you do it in the afternoon, I'll be there too. So
you got it.
All righty. So let's just get started. Why don't we get right into it, Josh? Tell us about yourself. Who are you and how did you get started even in the book publishing arena?
My name's Josh Jenne. I always wanted to write and publish. My degree is in English, but my junior year of college, I realized I should probably do some other job prospects for now. So I got heavily into marketing, started as a writer and editor, and then I turned that into SEO, and then I turned that into doing Facebook ads, and then being a marketing manager for other companies. And then in 2023, my company got bought by a hedge fund, and all the management was laid off. And so I said, this is the third time this has happened to me. And I'm tired of building other people's companies and marketing departments. I'm gonna do something for myself. So the transition was naturally there. I'd always been a fantasy and Dungeons and Dragons fan and player, and I saw other folks on Kickstarter doing small paperbacks that were raising $20,000, hardcovers that were doing $100,000 to $200,000, and I thought, I've seen their marketing, I've seen what they're putting out, and I can do this. I can do it better. And so 5 weeks, I'd written my first paperback adventure, and just to prove that I could do it. And it raised $11,000 with like $2,000 of marketing spend. So I decided to just keep going from there.
Great, great. Now, I want to talk about again the type of projects, and I know your book is around the game of Dungeons and Dragons, which is
Yes.
really a lifestyle, really, for many people. It's a lifestyle. It's something that people are clearly has a clearly defined audience.
Yeah.
So for many listening who may not, let me ask this question. Is that important that it be your project to be successful on Kickstarter? Should it be an audience or a movement or a genre that is got an already established audience?
50-50. I think that what really works well on Kickstarter is having a solid concept. Usually mixing X with Y works really well. And out the book that I did, Pinup Monster Girls 5.5e, that was mixing up pinups with a really well-known pinup artist, Dungeons and Dragons, and then Monster Girls. So I took the three concepts, mashed them together, and said, I think this will do very well. And it was a hit. We had a lot of fans of the artist, a lot of fans of Dungeons and Dragons, a lot of fans of Monster Girls, and a lot of fans of Dungeons and Dragons all come together. The community that has been built off of the project is very diverse. The Discord chat is filled with all sorts of people who are just really excited about the book. To answer your question, I think yes, but you do want to have a spin on it. There's nothing really new under the sun. I think authors of any genre can really do well on Kickstarter, especially those in like romance, romantasy, fantasy, sci-fi, horror. Comics do really well on Kickstarter. So any of those genres, and I know writers can bridge or go sideways or parallel, or I forgot the word, adjacent. They move adjacent to, instead of just writing novels, they could maybe try out like a web comic, or they can try something else, or they can do what they know and they love and do it really well. I really think that to succeed in Kickstarter, you have to be well versed in what you're selling. The most successful folks are people who are their own ICP, their own ideal customer profile. They're involved in the community. They know what they like. They know who they're writing for, because they are who they are writing for.
You mentioned Discord a second ago, and
Yes.
for some of you who are listening who may not be familiar with Discord, I'd like you to explain that. But aside from that, without going too far into Discord, because
Yeah.
that may be for some too much to go. I know what Discord is, but to go
Mhm.
into, I want to tie it around the necessity to build community
Absolutely.
before you start going into the book project, whether you use Kickstarter or not.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest misconceptions about Kickstarter is that, oh, you're going to start a project and it's going to get to everyone and it's going to become popular and people are just going to fund it. The thing with crowdfunding is that you have to bring the crowd before you start the project. And that can be done through various ways. Email lists are the most popular. Discord, I started interlinking my Discord list with my email list. Every email I send out, I link them to the Discord. All the Discord, I try to get them onto the email list, just to have all of those channels together. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
We were talking about the need to have a community or have some
Yes.
kind of a following before you started
Yes,
considering a Kickstarter campaign.
absolutely. So you definitely want to raise interest in your product before you launch it, because that day one raise is the most important metric to the success of a Kickstarter. So and it's very well documented statistically, how you can pretty much guess within a few $100s of how well your Kickstarter is going to do within the first 3 days by knowing your follower count and the quality of your follower count. Not to get too much into the math here, but about 20% of the people who are following your project will back, and 20%, 15 to 25% will back on day one. So you can boost those numbers by offering like a really good early bird special, a special edition cover. There's a lot of ways, and we'll probably get into that more on the how to do a Kickstarter, but we want to bring the community.
So yeah, so a Kickstarter campaign really essentially is, in the world that I swim in, I would say the terminology would be a launch campaign. So
Yes.
basically, you're launching a project, you're using Kickstarter as a way to drive it, as opposed to a landing page, which for many of you internet people know, we page where you send traffic over there, who you give your email address or contact information. But in this case, the Kickstarter campaign, they're actually putting down money. They're actually investing
Yes.
in the project.
But what's cool about Kickstarter is that they launched a new feature where before you had to make your own landing page to collect emails and collect followers. Now within Kickstarter, you can add information to create your own landing page. And that big notify me on launch button is the most important button on any campaign. If you go to Kickstarter right now and you look at some projects that haven't launched yet but are gathering followers before the launch, you can see that follower count. And that is absolutely the most important button to get people to click, because then they get notified and about 20% of those will actually back. So if you have 1,000 followers, you're going to have 200 followers on day one, almost guaranteed.
Okay, so I want to go a little bit in some logistics, just a little bit.
Sure.
Okay, so let's say I'm working on a book project that I think might be a fit for Kickstarter for raising funds and so on and so forth. So let's say I've been working on building up my email list, or like in my case, I use Skool. So I have a community that maybe I have maybe I set up a community that is dedicated to my future book project.
Yes.
So I'm building up audience there. And so I'm warming them up, I'm keeping them engaged and so forth. All righty. So then you're saying is this kind of a pre-launch Kickstarter page that you can have on the platform that you can start directing people over there to start getting up that follower count? Am I
Exactly.
okay? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the most common way to do it, and the most successful way to do it, I believe, is Facebook ads. You can get really hyper targeted with your Facebook ads. There's a whole science behind doing Facebook ads, but even if your targeting and your setup is not good, 80% of it is the creative. If you have good creative, it's gonna drive people to that page. They're gonna click that follow button, and then you can do the math there. If you invest $1,000 in ads, you get 500 followers at $2 per follower. 20% of those folks will follow on day one, and it just grows from there. So it's good that you mentioned that you have a Skool community beforehand, because if you're an author who already has like a TikTok following or an email list, then you are a perfect candidate to make that transition. A lot of YouTube creators go over and do a Kickstarter because they already have that audience ready to go, and they promote to their own audience saying, hey guys, we're launching this book in 8 weeks. Click on the link, click that notify me on launch button, and just getting them on multiple channels really helps that launch. And then on that day one, you have a bunch of folks follow, you hit your funding goal within, for folks who aren't on Kickstarter, or folks who are on Kickstarter, see, oh, this project is already funded within 5 hours. That gives more social proof, and it's definitely an avalanche where it will gain momentum the more followers and backers you have.
Got you. So the moral of the lesson for me, or for listeners, is that is something I'm always saying, is that you always need to be building your email list. Always be building your email list. Always building your email list. Second to that is then have some kind of the reason why, again, you use Discord, I personally like Skool, is because, and I've seen it with clients I'm working with now, is one of my clients has like now I think 35,000 followers on TikTok.
Yeah.
When we started working together in May, she was at like 25. She's gained about 10,000 followers in the last 3 or 4 months. She has a very engaging personality. She has a very engaged audience because she is addressing a pain point that is literally happening and unfolding in real time. And so, again, the interest? Are there bodies in the room that are raising their hand going, yeah, I either have a passion for this, or I love this subject, or I want to know more about this, I want to be in the world of this, or I'm going through something and I need someone that is helping me navigate and give me answers. But the key of it is that you've got to have some kind of an audience. So I just want to be clear for the listeners is you just don't throw up a Kickstarter page to crickets and no one knows who you are or what the book is about or anything and just go, oh, no one funded it. Many people
They
assume
have
that.
to know about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as a slight counterpoint, when I started, I had no audience. I built my audience through Facebook ads and through organic channels. So my first book, I knew I wasn't expecting it to do 100,000. I wasn't expecting to do 50,000. I had $2,000 to invest into it total. That's it, including marketing and art and whatnot. I ran Facebook ads. I said, here's the project, join the email list, click the notify on launch button. And I built, I think I only had 200 followers at launch for 50. I have the metrics in a spreadsheet somewhere, but I tracked it very diligently. But I think I only had like 200 to 400 followers at launch. And then 20, like on the dot, 20% of those followers backed day one, and it just kept growing from there. And then it eventually hit $11,000 in funding, sold 500 copies at a pretty good margin. So that's how it started. Was the first project I did not expect to do very well, but I knew it was to build that follower base. And I sent the book to everyone within 4 weeks just to build more reputation. Because that's another thing about Kickstarter is that a lot of folks have, when they think of Kickstarter, they think of negative connotations because I get told this all the time. Oh, I funded this board game and I didn't see it for 2 years, or oh, I funded this board game a year ago and I still haven't received it because they're having shipping issues or something like that. Like a lot of creators get in over their heads. I wanted to deliver the book and within 4 weeks because it was done before I finished the campaign. So just having that, and also Kickstarter doesn't let you launch a second project until your first project is fulfilled. You want to go in having a plan on the business side for how am I going to do this? How am I going to fulfill this? Lulu is fantastic, print on demand. And I know you're going to speak to Lulu. I can talk all day about the fulfillment side and the marketing side, but we're here for the creative side.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back for part two about that. Yeah. But so again, without going down the rabbit hole too much, I don't want to go too far into it for the
Yeah.
listeners. But what I will say is, again, you said something that I'm always saying to them is when we are trying to build up our audience or the awareness about who we are, either we're going to pay for it with sweat or cash.
Yep.
And you did it with ads, which I'm a proponent of Facebook ads as well. But again, that's a whole other
Yeah.
conversation for another day. But the point of the matter is, regardless of how you choose to do it, the gist of what we're saying here is to have an audience that has raised their hand and say, yes, I want to know more about this project. And you don't have to have, from what you're saying, thousands of people.
No.
Okay.
No, it's even a project with 200 followers will still get 50 buyers, and those 50 buyers are spending an average of $50 on your book. I can't do math right now. What's 50 times 50?
50 times 50 is
I got it. 2,500. So
yeah,
that's 2,500 on day one, and it just grows from there. That's 50 copies in the hands of people who didn't know about it before, and they tell their friends. And the Kickstarter platform itself is actually, because they take their pound of flesh, they take about 10% after all is said and done. Okay. So they want projects to succeed. So if you hit your goal, say your goal is $1,000, you hit $2,500 on day one with 50 backers, that triggers the Kickstarter algorithm. Or there's rumors about this, but I think personally, you hit the goal on day one, you have all that momentum. Kickstarter sends it out to all their folks because they have the best email list out of anyone. They have the email list of Kickstarter people who will back on Kickstarter. So say like my book is a romantasy about dragons, just we'll throw a Fourth Wing reference in there. And my book hits its goal within the first day, even though it's only $1,000. You don't want to set the goal too low. You want to have an actual amount, because I see folks do, oh, my goal is only $100. That's, if you don't think your project will do $100, what are you doing on the platform? Are you doing this for fun, or are you doing this seriously? So anyway, long story boring, you hit your goal. Kickstarter says, okay, this project hit its goal. It's a really cool project. We're gonna email it out to all the people who support games in all the people who, or sorry, all the people who support romantasy, the people who support books about dragons, the people who buy fantasy novels. It sends it out to all those verticals and all those demographics. And then those folks come into the platform, they get served ads from Kickstarter itself in their email list, or mostly their email list. And then those folks go and buy, and it just gains momentum from there. And then there's, for people who are on Kickstarter or on the Kickstarter app, if they're browsing, the more folks who buy your game, the higher up you get pushed on the list, or who buy your book, the higher you get put up on the list. So I think I showed you the metrics when we spoke earlier. I think like 70% of my book sales were from the Kickstarter platform itself. So I brought in my small group of folks who purchased, and then Kickstarter did that. And that was my first book. The last one I did, it was my fifth one that did $200,000. That one was mostly my own ads, my own sweat equity. And it was the perfect storm of all the experience and everything coming together to raise $200,000.
Gotcha. So this was your fifth book project?
Yes. Yeah. The one that did 200,000, Pin Up Monster Girls.
Wonderful. So you had that resume to go into it. I want to talk a little bit about, you said the metric or the number you want to hit. Let's say if you're first starting out, I think you said you had your first target, was it 1,000 or 2,000?
So it's, people don't like this, but the goal on Kickstarter is, it can be a misleading. I get folks who message me, they're like, "Oh, you already hit your goal, congratulations!" And it's like, the goal for my last one was $8,000, and that was very conservative. So to figure out, you can, like I said, once you know your numbers, you can very accurately guess what your day one raise is going to be. I've been extremely accurate on 3 out of 5 of my launches, but to determine that, so you can assuming your list, the followers you're gaining are good, 20% of your Kickstarter followers, those are on the actual platform itself, the ones who click the notify me and launch, 20% of those folks will back on day one. To be more conservative, you want to say 15% will back on day one. Sometimes if a project has a banger concept, it'll do 25 or 30%, but to be conservative, 15 to 20% will back on day one. So say I have 1,000 followers, you can accurately guess that 200 of those followers will back on day one. So if you know the price of your book, say your book is $20, so you have 1,000 followers. Let me get the calculator out. 1,000 followers, you're going to have 20% of those back on day one. That's 200 buyers. And what did I say your book was? $20?
$20.
So that's about $4,000 on day one is what your expected raise will be. So I usually set my goal to about half of that. So you set your goal to like $2,000.
Okay.
Come launch day, you hit your email list again. You also want to be, the ideal span of time to do a Kickstarter is 8 weeks. You don't want to market too long. You don't want to market too short. You want to build your actual follower count on that page for 8 weeks and then launch. And you want to hype it up. You want to do a countdown. You want to have an email campaign. Always build your email list. About 1 to 5% of your email list will back, and that depends on how strong your email is. My email list is not very strong because I build it through doing free demos of my book. I go, oh, here's a free chapter. Here's a free this. And a lot of those folks who join the email list for that, they just want the free. But it's still building the email list. And again, you can assume 1 to 5% of your emails will back. 20% of your actual Kickstarter followers will back. But you want them to feed into each other. You want your Kickstarter page to feed into the email list. And you want your email list you want to send them to that Kickstarter page to click the notify and launch button. Okay. So you want everything to feed into each other, but the most important page is the Kickstarter page. Back to our example, you have 1,000 followers, 200 will buy on day one. Say your book is $20, your average sale you estimate is $2,000. Okay, that's a $4,000 raise on day one. I would personally suggest setting the goal of that to, even if the goal is different, you set the goal to $2,000, you'll hit that within 1 to 5 hours. Mm-hmm. And then you get the social proof of, okay, hey, we've hit our goal in 5 hours, or we hit our goal in 1 hour. I think Monster Girls hit its goal in 50 minutes. But Monster Girls, I estimated that day one it would do $24,000 because I had 2,700 followers. After all the math, I assumed my day one average sale would be $49. So I assumed my day one raise would be $24,000. I was wrong. People added all the add-ons, and my average sale was actually $59. So a good $10 higher than that. So 20% more than I expected. And my day one raise was like $33,000. So I was correct. I was correct that 550 people would back. I think I guessed 550 and it was 566. So I was off by 16 people, but I was wrong on the pricing. It was exactly 20. It was, I think it was like 21% backed. And so I was very accurate on that. But
Gotcha.
my goal, because I expected it to be 22,000, the goal should have been 12,000 instead of 8. But I was being very conservative because my launch before that failed. And that happens. Sometimes the concept's not strong. Sometimes the follower count isn't strong. Sometimes the followers, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. And sometimes I've had 4 out of 5 successful launches. Lightning can't strike the same spot multiple
Right.
times. So don't be discouraged if it fails as well.
Okay. And when you say fails, meaning that it failed, it didn't hit your target number out the gate day one as far as the conversions.
Yeah, so for that one, I invested $10,000 into the project, and it only raised $13,000 on Kickstarter. So I only had a $3,000 profit, which when the book is supposed to pay your bills and for itself, it's not very feasible.
Got you. So let's put some context around that just for a
Sure.
second.
Yeah,
So for someone listening to this, I would say any profit is a success. So
absolutely.
you invested $10,000 of your own money towards, and that 10,000 went into ads. I'm taking it.
No, that was overall. That was for art. That was for production, for editing, for formatting.
Okay.
For I think 5,000 of that was into ads, or just a $10,000 budget overall went into that book.
Marketing,
Um,
production, the whole nine.
yeah, and then it only
And you
raised,
did $13,000 in sales. So you had a $3,000 profit
yes,
on that.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
Whereas for at least in my, it depends on what vertical you're in. For Dungeons and Dragons books or board gaming, your average margin is about 30%. For books, you want to do 40 to 50%. The thing with it, I know a lot about the Dungeons and Dragons and the tabletop RPG vertical because I'm super ingrained in it. I'm not as versed in the normal novels, but there's those numbers are online. You can find them, but you want to be familiar with what your numbers are, and you want to price yourself appropriately, which is a whole. I think when we spoke earlier. I said I agonized over the pricing for hours and days and weeks, changed it multiple times, added a product at the last second. You want to make sure your numbers are correct because at the end of the day, Kickstarter takes their 10%. You have printing costs. So you want to work out what your printing costs are. You want to work out your ad spend and what your return on ad spend is going to be. I am profitable at 2.2 ROA for my last book. So that means for folks who aren't marketers, for every dollar I spend, I need to sell $2.2 worth of product. And that's assuming that 60% of my buyers are buying the digital only version, which has no print costs. I can just send an email with the product, and 40% buy the physical. For my last book, Pinup Monster Girls, many people want the book, they want the calendar. I made a mistake, and mistakes happen with any business. You're learning as you go. I mistakenly thought that 60% would buy digital only and 40% would buy physical. I think the actual number was like 85% bought physical because they want the book, they want the calendar, they want all the physical items. So
Okay.
make sure you're doing that as well when you figure
Yeah.
out your numbers.
Perfect. And just for the listeners who may not be familiar with the terminology, can you tell the listener what is ROA?
ROA is a return on ad spend.
Okay, great. Okay, great. All right. Now let's switch gears all about what you just, as you segues into what you just talked about, the things you're giving them, the
Mm-hmm.
customer who may buy. Again, we're talking about books, so obviously we're going to look at digital and then physical.
Yeah.
Is there recommendations based on your experience about, I think you also mentioned a calendar. What
Mm-hmm.
recommendations do you have for diversifying the offerings and building out? Because I know the numbers go up the more things you add. So can we talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, of course. So for my vertical, I don't know, is very applies as much to folks who are doing hardcovers or soft covers. There's a great creator. He does comicslaunch.com. I forgot his name, but I follow him even though he does primarily comic books, but a lot of everything he says applies to all Kickstarters, especially in publishing. I think he recommends doing alternate covers because people do judge a book by its cover and its art. So for more products, you could do like your book, you could do the special hardcover edition with a limited edition calendar or limited edition cover. You could have folks pick which kind of cover or which cover they want. So you want to add more offerings because that increases the price, obviously. So for mine specifically, I did the book because it's Pinup Monster Girls. So I have but it's a Dungeons and Dragons book. It's still a book that mechanically works. You can still run at your table. You can still fight these people. You can still do adventures in this land. But I have the hardcover book, and then I added the calendar, and then I added stickers. I found a sticker fulfillment partner. So those are the main three. The hard. I also added a soft cover version for those folks who don't want to spend as much money or who want like a more vintage pinup magazine feel. The margin on that is exactly the same as the hardcover, so it doesn't matter which one I sell. I still make the same amount of profit. But when the jump from the PDF is $24 and the hardcover is $45, I wanted the people who were in between. So I was able to capture those folks as well. Yeah, offer a hardcover version, offer a soft cover version, offer alternate covers. That does become a nightmare on logistics, but BackerKit, which is a fulfillment service, and Lulu make that easier to navigate. And plus, if you sell the books, you'll do the work to fulfill it and get it to the right people and make sure they get the right cover. Adding stickers, anything that your vertical really enjoys. I'm not 100% sure on what, if I were to do a horror book, a horror novel on Kickstarter, I'm not 100% sure on what extra add-ons that maybe they would like stickers of tchotchkes or enamel pins also do really well. Anything that is cheap that you can add to the book and just adds value.
Gotcha.
It's a great addition
Gotcha.
Because that raises your price per sale, and then that raises your overall raise.
And you offer, I'm sure, a bundle that combines all of those things.
Yes, I should have mentioned that. So yeah, you definitely bundle things together for a discount because again, that raises the value of what they're getting. A lot of people go to Kickstarter and they're like, okay, I'm getting a lot for little, and you do want to give them a lot for relatively little. Like I said, the day one raise is your most important number out of anything. And to get that day one raise, you want to have an early burst. You want to have a reward for the folks who have been with you from the beginning, who have followed the product before it even launched on Kickstarter. So the main thing you do is you do either a limited edition or you do a early bird special that's only available for 24 hours. So for Pinup Monster Girls, for only 500 copies available, you get the book, you get the stickers, and you get the book and 2 sets of stickers for pretty much just the price of the base book. And yes, the margins on that are a lot worse than the rest of the product. It's rewarding my followers. There's only 500 available, and folks have FOMO and they want that special offer. And
right,
that's going to fill up first, and you can get 500 of those selling on day one, about $49 each. That's $24,000. That was my estimated day one raise.
Got you. And we're using Lulu. So for many of you who know, I'm a big proponent of Lulu, but we also have to factor in that because you're doing POD, print on demand, is that
Yes.
the margins are going to be not that great because you're not investing in a print run ahead of time. So how did you handle pricing in regards to because you also have to factor in the shipping cost as well.
Yes.
And you say you're using Lulu for the books themselves and the calendars, but the stickers in our pre-interview conversation are being shipped separately because you've got a separate partner
Yes.
for that.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, so I was going to ask just about your numbers as regards to the cost to produce the product plus the shipping cost. And how does someone how to take those numbers and then price your bundle appropriately so that you're making a profit
Yes.
on that.
So that's where that's the conversation that takes a while because, okay, so I estimated my book is going to be 80 pages. Hardcover, that's going to cost me, I spoke to Lulu because of the volume, they're giving me a big discount. So you find out the cost of your book. So my book, for example, costs $12 to print the hardcover. And then for this project, I'm collecting shipping on the back end, which is what you're supposed to do. In the previous ones, I collected shipping up front, but that's really dangerous. It makes your raise higher. But again, Kickstarter takes their percentage. If you use any ad partners, they take their percentage. So they're taking percentage off of a bigger number, and you need to make sure you have enough for shipping. And with how volatile shipping is, especially these days with tariffs, you want to collect shipping after the fact. So I collected shipping. I think I have about $40,000 in my shipping fund right now, collected after the campaign, but also people added more products after the campaign. So that's just more revenue after the fact. So even though the raise says 200,000 for Pinup Monster Girls, it's actually about 230, 240,000 right now because there's a lot of recurring revenue after. And that's another conversation for folks who, instead of just putting their book on Amazon and crossing their fingers. You can launch it on Kickstarter, get it out to those initial people, then put it on Amazon, and then you have that social proof of, hey, this book was popular on Kickstarter, now it's on Amazon, etc. But to answer your original question, so pricing. So say my hardcover is $12 to print. Shipping, I figured I had to figure out all the countries. For the US, it's $9. For the UK, it's $10. For Asia, is $18 because Lulu doesn't have printers in Asia, but they do have printers in the UK. They have printers in Canada. They have printers in the US. They have printers. So they have printers all over the place that they can avoid tariffs for that. So you figure out your pricing. You figure out your price. Shipping is on the back end. So $12 to print. You also want to be competitive with other books in your market, but you don't want to underprice yourself. The big thing I see with folks is they severely underprice their book. They're like, oh, I only want to sell it for $10. No one will buy it if it's $25. So that's wrong. If you underprice yourself, you're giving the illusion that your book is cheap.
Okay.
So you have to have faith in yourself and your product. And so say, okay, even if it is $8 to print your book, if it's something that's high value, people will pay $30, $40. And you definitely want to research on Kickstarter what other people are paying for their stuff and price yourself in a similar bracket, or if you're adding more value. Like for mine, I'm doing the nice paper and I have an incredible artist. So for, even though the book is only 80 pages, I priced it at 45 because that's what folks will pay for a Dungeons and Dragons book. And that's what folks will pay for the level of art that has gone into it. And my pricing, my personal print cost is up because I'm using the nice paper because I love my artist. She's fantastic. Check her out on Instagram. It's Nubes Rosas. We'll have a link to her after this, but I'm not going to put her artwork on the paper. I'm going to put it on the nice paper. Find out what your book costs to print, price it appropriately. Then you figure out what your profit is. Say my book is $45, cost $12 to print. So that's about $33 profit per sale. However, you need to get into the calculator and figure, okay, Kickstarter is going to take their 10%. I did use an advertising partner, Gelop, to push out, because I do my own Facebook marketing, but they do Google ads, they do YouTube, they do ad channels that I'm not familiar with. So I spent a lot of money with them to advertise in their channels, and they take 15% of whatever they sell. At the end of, even though my margin is over, that margin shrinks pretty fast. And overall, I ended up with about 30% profit from the book, which is very average for a tabletop RPG product. But yeah, so pricing, figure out what your print cost is, figure out what folks are selling in your same demographic. And if your book's a lot long, if your book's like a 300-page doorstopper, price it appropriately because folks will pay for that. And especially if your book is a lot longer, you're not going to price it the same as someone who's selling a 150-page book. So figure all that out. And then once you have that figured out, you can figure out, okay, how much can I afford on advertising to break even? Figure out what my ROA is. And Gelop actually has a really nice ROA calculator spreadsheet that you can just enter, okay, here's how much it costs to print, here's how much it costs to do this, here's how much we're going to take if you go with us, here's how much Kickstarter is going to take, and then you can figure out what that number is. And then when you run your ads, or if they run ads for you, then, you know, if you stay above that 2.2, like for me, it was 2.2. If I stay above 2.2, just keep funneling money into it because you're going to stay profitable at 2.2. Your average Kickstarter campaign, you can expect to spend about 20% of your total raise on ads. So if your campaign raises $100,000, you can reasonably expect to have spent about $20,000 of that on ads for the average campaign. If you come in as a YouTube creator or a big TikTok creator who already has an audience of people who are ready to buy, you don't have to advertise to those folks with money because you already have them. But if you're like me and you were starting your list from scratch, then you can expect to spend 20%. For Pinup Monster Girls, I spent about 17% of the total raise on ads. So I spent about $34,000 on ads to raise $202,000.
Okay. So I want to stick with the bundling for a moment. And
yeah, sorry,
this is all a part of it. This is all part of it. So I know that for some of you listening, you might think, okay, as you are doing the books and the different versions of the book, the printed book, the stickers and that kind of thing. But I also notice on some Kickstarter campaigns, and I know you have something similar, that is really more higher, what you call higher ticket.
Mhm.
and
The whale
you
tier.
typically off and something that you only offer like a very limited amount to. When we had our pre-interview conversation, we talked about it from the perspective of there's a term in the, I guess you call it the marketing world, marketing
Mhm.
and sales world, called price anchoring. So people will see something that is this level, like a Neiman Marcus level, and then you've got the Target level down here, but it tends to attract more people to buy the entry level price point because what they really want is that ascension level, but they can't really maybe go with that. But I don't know. I just want to put that out there. What did you decide to do for your higher ticket level, and did those sell out and
Oh, they sold out
contribute to the sales?
within 30 seconds. So for Pinup Monster Girls, we I spoke with Rose. I was like, "Are you able to do two extra illustrations? Because I want to do a community, or I want to do a submit a Monster Girl where two backers. I wanted to do three originally, but Rose only had time for two. Two backers can submit their own Monster Girl idea with their own backstory, etc. And me and her will turn it into an entry into the book. We only offer two of those, and we offered them for $350. We should have done 500 because the demand was huge. Because a lot of folks they want to see their what they created in the book, and a lot of D&D creators actually do this now because it adds community engagement where yeah you can have your piece in there. So anyway, with the whale tier is what we call it. We offered two individuals to submit their own monster girls, and then I would write up the fight, how to fight them, their stat block, their story, their lore, where they live in this Dungeons and Dragons land, and then Rosa would illustrate them. And sold out within 30 seconds because there were people in the Discord being like, "I'm ready, like I want this, I want that tier." Because before you launch the product, you want to hype it up and bring in that crowd, and that crowd they were already excited for that product. And as soon as it launched, sold out within 30 seconds. And I had 4 or 5 people in my DM saying, "Hey, it's sold out. I wanted to do the Submit a Monster Girl tier." I'm like, "I'm sorry, there was only two available. Rosa's already drawing all of the art for this book, and I added two more to her plate, which I really hated doing, but I thought it'd do really well." And it did. So you definitely want to have that big tier. For my other books, my big tiers are the whole thing. The more you create on Kickstarter, the more momentum you get because of back sales. For Pinup Monster Girls, I offer all my other books that I've done previously, either as an add-on or as part of the big Get Everything bundle. And the big Get Everything bundle is like 20% off or what have you. I forgot what math I decided on that. For folks who are discovering you for the first time, they go, "Oh, this creator has created." I think I've written 6 or 7. I think I've done 5 campaigns, but I've written 6 books for Kickstarter, and they see that big bundle of just get everything we've ever made ever for $300 or $200. If you're an author and you do Kickstarter, you do say you have a 3-part series. Here's book 1, here's book 2, and then they can get a bundle of book 1 and 2 for a discount, and folks will jump in and they'll buy that. You do the whole trilogy. The Kickstarter might be for book 3, but in your bigger tiers, you have the get the whole trilogy for 20% off, and then for like your whale tier or something else, you like have it personally autographed by you. So you will have to get it shipped to yourself, sign it, and then ship it off to them. But that's awesome. That's really awesome for the person who is very excited about you. They're willing to put their money where their mouth is and get a signed copy. So I definitely recommend doing that. Yeah, and doing a hardcover special edition, limited edition
Yeah.
with different art. There's a lot of ways to skin the cat there, but yeah, you definitely want to have your whale tier. And then to answer your original question about anchor tiers, so I did, because there's the book, then there's book plus stickers. For my other tiers, I did book plus 2 stickers, book plus 3 stickers, book plus hardcover plus softcover. I'd have to look at it again. I forgot. I've been so lost in the fulfillment sauce with all the shipping and everything. But the way I price it, I had the PDF, the entry level tier for $24, and then you can get the soft cover, which is slightly more, $10 more. The hardcover for $10 more than that, so 45. And then I bundled the book with the stickers with this PDF, because the stickers are like 15 to add, and then I made them 12 to add on that bundle. So you save $3, which $3 off 50 is X%. And then I did the book plus 3 sticker packs for $69 because they'll get the joke and they'll buy that. I forgot what the discount is. The folks who are buying, they will look for discounts, and you want to give them good discounts while still keeping good margins. So that's part of the web of pricing. You want to price profitable, bundle, and price those so that it's a very complicated formula. It's definitely the hardest part, I think. And then I did the all digital collection and then the all physical collection. And then, of course, the retailer version for folks who own game stores who want to buy 10 copies to put onto their shelves. You definitely want to do a retailer version for publishing. And then, of course, the whale tier of submit your own. And a lot of folks, what they'll do is they'll do a $10 book, but then for $15, you can have your name added to the book on a thank you page. And people will spend the extra $5. To them, it's only $5, but to you, that's a 50% increase because you're only selling your book for 10, but for an extra 5, you can get your name in the book. That's a huge increase for you, and you just add that page. And obviously, you want to thank your backers, and that's a really great way to do it is by putting them into the book itself, so that when people get it in their hands, they can see their name on the front page saying, "Hey, huge thank you to Josh or to Rodney for helping make this come true."
And that's for the digital iteration.
Or the physical.
Or physical. Okay, great. Yeah, any level. Yeah, I like that level of personalization. I had an idea that just popped in my head. I know this ties into the next question. Is your campaign still going?
Yes. The pre-order store is up, so people can come in and buy the book after the fact. I'm just throwing all the stretch goals in there. Usually stretch goals are only for people who back on Kickstarter, but the way that the fulfillment works out, they're going to get the stretch goals as well. Kickstarter allows you to do late pledges for people who miss the bus, and you do want to increase your prices on late pledges because you want people to have a reason to kickstart it and to be those first backers and to make it happen to begin with. So my book is going to go to $50 after the Kickstarter campaign. So, you want to give another good reason for the Kickstarter people to come in at the price they are in. And then if they're late, then too bad, so sad. You didn't help with the original raise. It is more expensive. But people who are excited about it, or people get busy, they miss the campaign, they see, okay, yeah, I can late pledge, they'll pay the little extra. So yes, the campaign is still going because I have the pre-order store up until I start shipping it out, which I'm hoping to ship at the end of October, early November for this one.
For ongoing sales beyond, so will there be a point where you will close this down? And then
yes.
If you do, then what's the plan to continue?
My website is very terrible. Don't go there. It's still being built, but I'm going to sell on the website. I'm going to run Facebook ads to the website to sell the book, and then probably Amazon and Barnes and Nobles just as other iterations. And that's another great thing about Lulu is that you can connect their fulfillment to your website. So when people buy on my website, Lulu they'll charge me, they'll print and ship it, and then I get the money from the buyer. So that's another reason why I'm waiting, because this is my first book that I've done with Lulu, but because they offer that was one of the reasons I went with them.
Yeah.
Is for the after the fact to continue selling the book.
Okay, good. So I have an idea for you that I'm going to just say, since we're recording, and if we decide not to share this, but for whatever reasons, then I can cut this part of the interview out.
Cut it out, yeah.
But what do you think about having, this goes back to the whale tier. So I know you are working with a very well-known artist in the community. People know who she is. And because we live in the entertainment capital of Las Vegas,
yes.
What do you think about having a one-person offer where the person gets that book signed by the artist, and that person comes out to Vegas and gets to sit and hang out with you and the artist for a day?
Absolutely. Yes. My friends have suggested this, where they say do a whale tier where you fly out and run a Dungeons and Dragons session for them using the book. Just logistically, that's not feasible for me, but many friends have mentioned it, and if they're willing to back at that much, and absolutely come out, hang out. Yeah, I think that would be a fantastic whale tier to have. And that's an obvious super fan that you have, definitely.
Yeah, it could definitely be one of those tiers where that, there's a place here in Vegas that I heard about when I first got here. I think that maybe it's Vegas. I'm not sure. I think it's Vegas. Everything, so many things here get done so over the top. But I guess there's like $1,000 steak or something like that. and they bring the steak out like inside of a suitcase and they open it and they think there's like diamonds around it or some crazy some ridiculousness. But they sold,
Mhm.
I think, 20 of these steaks or something during some sporting event that happened here.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that's
what I'm
nuts.
saying is that there's that person that, oh, money is really no object kind of thing. So it could be like that really big over the top pricing model that whereas maybe one person that comes out and hangs out with you all for the day or something like that, as opposed to managing an event where there's a lot of people you got to manage and all of that, because that's a lot of work. But
Yes.
anyway, just something like, what I call that. I used to work for the Four Seasons. So what's that high end, over the top, like that $20 bottle of Evian water thing I talked about at the
Yep.
at the networking event? Would you pay for that? No, actually, I would not with my level of income, but I want you to pay it because that pays my
But
rents.
yeah, and that's knowing your customers and
Yeah,
what their
yeah,
budgets are. So
yeah.
if
Cool, cool,
if
cool.
you are catering to the high rollers at the Four Seasons Hotel, then
Yeah.
they will. Yeah, $20 for a bottle of water is nothing to them.
Exactly, exactly. High roll level. So let's see here. So we talked about different levels. We're not going to go into structuring of a actual page, all that.
That
That's way
yeah,
over the that. But you and I did speak about, because this is a lot, and thank you
it is
so
a
much
lot.
for doing this. I know we spoke when we had our pre-interview about the possibility of you offering some kind of a course or coaching or anything around for authors who want to do that, and you want to talk about that a little bit. Not You're not doing that now, I understand that, but maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
No, absolutely. There's so much to it, and I gave myself the crash course because I was laid off. I was like, I'm gonna try to launch a book to see if this is feasible, and I there's a lot of information online that you can learn about how to do it. And I do come from a business and marketing background. Creative Josh is very different from business Josh. But I'm able to merge the two because I do write great content. I believe I do write great books. And like I tell people, it's more important to sell books than it is to write books because it doesn't matter if you make the next Silmarillion or the next Lord of the Rings or the next Game of Thrones. If no one knows about it, then it doesn't matter. So
Yeah,
you want to put on your marketing and sales hat, get that audience excited, get them to buy the book, and then it grows from there because people recommend it. And I know on Amazon that's the biggest thing is recommendations. When the book is well done, which it's well done because you're a great writer, and then people get excited about it because you're marketing, and then they buy it, they recommend it to their brother, their cousin, their aunt, their friend group, etc., and then it just goes from there. So if I were to do a school group, I talk about the most important thing you need is a good concept. It
yes.
doesn't matter what you're selling if it already exists everywhere else for $5. And that's why my fourth book failed because the concept was not there. It was a generic it was a dungeons book, which you can go online and get PDFs of dungeons for $5 or $10. And here I was selling a hardcover of a dungeon book for $45 when the dungeons were not really connected and there was no twist to it. You also want to, if you take a normal concept and you add a twist, you're golden. But
Gotcha.
the concept wasn't anything people were excited about. Basically, take your concept and imagine you're holding $10,000. Would you gamble this $10,000 on this
Mhm.
concept? If the answer is no, then you probably don't. You either don't believe in your product enough, or you know that it's probably not going to sell well. So concept over everything. You can have marketing, you can have email lists. If your concept is good, it'll sell. So yeah, concept above everything. Then the second part of the school would probably be like, okay, just understanding your metrics and the numbers you want to hit, and then